This episode is sponsored by Arqueo Tours. Want to dig deeper into Mexico's indigenous past and present? Allow Arqueo Tours to customize your Yucatan adventure. Arqueo works hand in hand with local indigenous guides to provide a tour that is entertaining, educational, and beneficial to the local community. For an adventure like no other, check out arqueogato.com. That's ARKEOGATO.com. Or just follow the link in the show notes. Now, on with the show. This episode is sponsored by Arqueo Tours. Want to dig deeper into Mexico's indigenous past and present? Allow Arqueo Tours to customize your Yucatan adventure. Arqueo works hand in hand with local indigenous guides to provide a tour that is entertaining, educational, and beneficial to the local community. For an adventure like no other, check out arqueogato.com. That's ARKEOGATO.com. Or just follow the link in the show notes. Now, on with the show.
You must excuse me. I've grown quite weary.
This hasn't been easy, I know. But you've learned a lesson. A lesson in honesty. Honesty to yourself and honesty to others. That lesson will stand you in good stead all your life.
I think we've all learned a good lesson. I've always heard that honesty is the best policy. Now I'm catching on to why that's so,
Greetings, dear listeners, and welcome to yet another episode of Tales from Atlantis. We are your hosts, Kurly Tlapoyawa.
And Ruben Arellano Tlacatecat.
What is up, man? How you been?
I've been living it up. Busy, very busy.
Yeah, I know, man. You've been letting me know all the variety of things that you've been doing. What you did a play, right?
I did a play. Yes, that's right. That's awesome. Right. It was a play that kind of brought some attention to environmental issues, environmental racism, dealing with communities of color, communities of low-income, working-class people down in South Texas.
Nice.
It's related to like the pollution that a lot of those industries down there and the petroleum industries and such that do a lot of chemical polluting of the environment, and it's kind of bringing awareness to that, and it's also tied to some of the issues that are going on here in Dallas, especially out in West Dallas. After the play, we had a local community grassroots group that has been organized for the last couple of years, trying to combat some of those issues in West Dallas, local polluters that are in basically black and brown communities. And the city has kind of stepped in to put a limit, but it's going to take, if I'm not mistaken, like 7 years for the company to like shut down completely. So it's going to be operating, but it's going to be a slow kind of shutdown. It's over the course of 7 years. And
like an extended decommission.
Yeah, and the community... You're right, and so the community is the people who are involved with the organization called Singleton Unidos, and they're like, nah, this needs to happen like now. Like it's been going on for so long that we can't wait for you to shut it down 7 years from now. Like,
yeah.
So it's an ongoing issue, but yeah. So I was part of that play, and it was great. It was great to be on stage, and I did get a little bit of a stage fright because this is my first thing. It was a reading. It was an actual play. I'm not a thespian, but it was great. It was great.
It's definitely a different experience, right?
Definitely, and being an instructor and being able to communicate in front of people like really helped. If I didn't have that experience, it would have been I don't know if I would have been able to do it, honestly, because we only had a week to practice.
Damn.
And in fact, the director of the play is one of the danzantes from our group.
Oh, nice.
And she was I don't know like how they deal with this with the theater companies, but she was working with Teatro Dallas, which is the oldest Chicano / quote unquote Latino theater company in Dallas. It's been around since the 80s, in fact. And so she reached out to me and she's like, hey, we're looking for someone to play the role of, his name was Gonzalo Guerrero. And she's like, we're looking for someone who's, can play the role of an old school Chicano Tejano. And she's like, I think you would fit the role. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Why not?
Nice. Well, what I'm hearing is it was Hollywood nepotism that got you this role.
Pretty much.
You knew.
Pretty much. I knew the director. Isn't that how it happens?
Can you say the name of the play?
The name of the play is Choke.
Choke. Okay.
Yeah, Choke.
Interesting.
And the director's name is Alexandra Hernandez. And so shout out to Alexandra.
Yeah, shout out.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be on the play.
Absolutely.
And that that's just one of the many things that I've been involved in, but I don't want to
divulge,
monopolize the time here.
Well, you and I got an unexpected visit, man, and I appreciate you offering the couch to me because I was stuck.
Oh, right,
stuck in the DFW airport. My flight had been canceled. I was on my way to Indiana, and you were kind enough to say, hey, man, you want to come crash? So thank you for that.
Couch surfer.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
That was very nice. And it was cool to see you. That was awesome. That was a nice little...
It was, man. It was.
It was a nice little visit. Had some good food. Had some good drinks.
Good drinks, good food, good times.
Yeah, good company. Well, recently I was at the Indigenous Pop Culture Expo in Oklahoma City. It was held at... this great museum called the First Americans Museum. And, the abbreviation is FAM, right? So it's like you're going to the FAM for the First Americans Museum.
How is the museum?
The museum is great. It's really beautiful. It's well done. They had a great exhibit on drums. And I guess
nice.
One of the organizers was telling me that they had to start chaperoning the white people into that exhibit because they would start banging on the fucking drums.
Get out of here.
Yeah, they immediately made a beeline, I guess. It started fucking playing with the drums that were on exhibit.
Just like some kids, right? They just can't help themselves.
Yeah, what the fuck, man? Just very disrespectful.
It's native stuff.
Yeah, right?
We can touch it, right?
Yeah, this shit doesn't matter. But what was cool is behind the museum is this modern version of a mound. And you can climb up on top of it, and it's oriented to the winter and summer solstices.
Is it an original mound or is
it's modern. They built it.
It's a reconstruction.
Yeah,
because if I'm not mistaken, there are some mounds in Oklahoma. I forget exactly where, but they're part of that whole mound culture, the Mississippian cultures that extended out into Oklahoma and parts of Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense then why they would have this mound. It's a modern interpretation of one behind. But what's funny is you could walk along the top of it, and Oklahoma is flat as shit, man. There's not a fucking mountain for hundreds and hundreds of miles.
It is the Southern Plains.
So you stand on this mound and you could just see. I felt so isolated and exposed. I didn't realize how protected I feel by mountains. Growing up here, surrounded by these mountains, it kind of
feels like they're hugging you.
Yeah, it has a psychological effect on you where it feels very
like protection.
Exactly. Right? Protected, your home, and then I all of a sudden I'm somewhere where there's no mountains whatsoever.
You're exposed. Right.
And the event itself was fantastic. Met a lot of great people, had fun. It's very different. Very different.
What were you doing there?
So I was a guest at the Indigenous Pop Culture Expo. So they had me present my documentary short, the Guardians of the Purple Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then they had me talk about the Mexikah calendar system. And they had me present the game Tambuchi, which is the ball game from Western Mexico that you play with the corn husk ball.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of kids out there from all different nations playing this game. It was very cool.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun. Like, the kids dug it.
Awesome.
In the future, I hope to take, make multiple balls and then just give them away to each kid that shows up to play so that they could take it home with them.
Well, here locally, we have a group of native stickball players.
Nice.
That played not that far from here, actually, here in near where I live, like a 5-minute drive. And they practice on the weekends. I need to find out exactly when, but if I have some time, I'm gonna go over there and check it out and see what stickball is all about. I've been hearing a lot about stickball, so I mean it's probably not the same as Tambuchi, but I'm sure that there's some correlation there, right?
Yeah, and they also had an exhibition of stickball at this event.
Oh, they did?
And
nice.
They did it with a glow-in-the-dark ball, and they did it at night.
Oh, wow. So like Tron?
So, yeah, it was cool. They attached like glow sticks to the sticks that they were playing with. And so it did. It looked like Tron. It was pretty rad.
Did you take video of that?
I didn't.
There's got to be some video.
Yeah,
I'll look for it.
There's got to be some video of this event.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. And now we find ourselves here. Back once again. Season 3.
Is it season 3?
Season 3. Don't call
3
it
seasons. Because we've been here for a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Much to the chagrin of some of the haters. The rumors of our demise were greatly exaggerated, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day.
So today we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to both of us: the assassination of Kwawhtemok. On February 28th of the year 1525, Kwawhtemok, the last sovereign tlatoani, ruler or speaker of the Mexikah nation and the Anawak Confederacy, was assassinated by Hernán Cortés. That year, Cortés took Kwawhtemok along on his expedition to Honduras, where he defeated Cristobal de Olid, who had claimed Honduras as his own under the influence of Diego Velázquez, the governor of Cuba. De Olid was a Spanish adventurer, conquistador, and rebel who played a role in the invasion of Mexico and Honduras, and Cortés viewed him as a threat. In fact, Cortés had come to distrust anyone with a semblance of authority, and fearing that Kwawhtemok might lead an insurrection in Mexico, brought him on the Honduran expedition. Cortés eventually ordered Kwawhtemok hanged along with Tetlepanquetzal, the tlatoani of Tlacopan. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should start with some basic facts first. Who was Kwawhtemok? And why is he an important figure in the collective memory of Mexicans? Early life.
We'll be back after a quick break.
This episode of Tales from Aztlantis is brought to you by Aztlantis Premium. Don't you just hate having your favorite podcast interrupted by ads like this? Well, dear listener, you're in luck. Because starting at just $3 a month, you can support independent Chicano media and receive ad-free episodes, premium episodes, bonus content, and access to our Discord server. Just visit talesfromaztlantis.com and click Go Premium, or follow the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show.
We'll be back after a quick break.
This episode of Tales from Aztlantis is brought to you by Aztlantis Premium. Don't you just hate having your favorite podcast interrupted by ads like this? Well, dear listener, you're in luck, because starting at just $3 a month, you can support independent Chicano media and receive ad-free episodes, premium episodes, bonus content, and access to our Discord server. Just visit talesfromatlantis.com and click Go Premium, or follow the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show.
The early years of Kwawhtemok's life are virtually unknown. There are no reliable sources describing his formative years, and in fact, prior to being elected as the 11th and last sovereign tlatoani of the Anawak Confederacy, the historical record is relatively silent on him. His life is so obscure that there is no consensus as to when he was born and how old he was when he became tlatoani. Most sources place his birth between 1495 and 1497, making him roughly about 25 years old when he died. Other sources claim that he was 18, but that seems unlikely given that he would have been too young to be handed the mantle of leadership. Thus, Kwawhtemok is often referred to as El Abuelo Joven, or the young grandfather. The identity of his mother is also a cause for dispute, with various sources pointing to several women. However, there are two contenders. The first one is Tlilancapat, Princess of Tlatelolco, and lineal descendant through her maternal line of Nezahualcóyotl, the poet prince of Texcoco. The other is Tiyacapantzin, also from Tlatelolco and a princess. But of the two, it is the latter, Tiyacapantzin, who is considered the most likely to have been his mother. In contrast, there is no question who Kwawhtemok's father was. Ahuizotl was the 8th tlatoani under whose reign, from 1486 through 1502, the Anawak Confederacy reached its greatest height. As a descendant of that noble line, Kwawhtemok was a logical choice for leadership and resistance. As for Kwawhtemok's wife, this is a little complicated and deserves more study to understand the dynamics at play during this stressful time. Her name was Tecuichpo Ixca Xochitzin and was the favorite daughter of Moctezuma II Xocoyotzin and his wife Tezalco Tecuichpo, who was from Tonalco and the daughter of Totoquihuat, king of Tlacopan or Tacuba. Before the invasion, she was commonly known as Tecuichpo Ixta Xochitl, and after the fall of Tenochtitlan, she became known as Isabel Moctezuma. More on her shortly. As for Kwawhtemok, we know that he was educated in the Telpoxcali, an institution of education for young children, primarily boys, and that he later attended the Calmecac, a place where people from elite families sent their sons to study politics, religion, and martial arts. As a distinguished alumnus, he rose through the ranks and became a Tlacatecutli, a high-ranking officer in the Aztec Legion. His political achievements also led him to become the Cuauhtlatoani, or Eagle Ruler, of Tlatelolco, and that is the extent of what is known about his life prior to becoming leader. We won't get into the details of the meeting between Moctezuma II and Cortés, nor the lengthy stay of the Spanish and their allies in the city of Tenochtitlan here. It is useful to note, however, that Tecuichpo Ixta Xochitl, the future wife of Kwawhtemok, had only recently returned to live at the palace after the death of her first husband, Atlicasi, who had been a prominent Tlacatecat or commander in the Aztec ranks. Cortés sensed that his welcome was waning, and in a calculated move that only a conniving coward can make, he seized the way Tlatoani Moctezuma and imprisoned him in the palace of Axayacat. Among the nobles arrested was Cuitláhuac, the Tlatoani's brother, who was the lord of Iztapalapa. After almost 100 days, the people of Tenochtitlan became annoyed by the presence of the Spanish and their Indian allies, the Tlaxcalteca, Totonaca, Huexotzinca, and others, and the rumblings of discontent became an all-encompassing topic of public conversation, and debate.
Kwawhtemok. Believing that Kwawhtemok wouldn't do anything to imperil the life of the tlatoani, his brother, Moctezuma II, or Moctezuma Xocoyotzin, Cortés allowed his release with specific instructions to appease the mounting rebellion and placate his people. Having distrusted the Spanish from the start, Kwawhtemok led the resistance himself. In a desperate attempt to placate the Tenochca masses, Cortés forced Moctezuma to speak to his people and bring order to the city. But it was too late. Moctezuma is killed in the process, and the battle for Tenochtitlan ensued. The Spanish maintained that he'd been killed by his own people, the idea being that because he was perceived as a puppet of the Spanish, an angry demonstrator killed him with a projectile, which is usually a rock, right, as if I remember the story correctly. Indigenous accounts tell a different story, that it was the Spanish who killed Moctezuma when he lost his power and influence over his people. When the tlatoani dead, with the tlatoani dead, the Spanish feared for their lives. And on the night of June 30th, 1520, they and their native allies attempted to leave the city, but were caught as they fled. Alerted by a woman gathering water on a moonless night, Mexikah warriors chased and attacked the invaders as they fled. By some estimates, approximately 400 Spaniards and 4,000 native allies were killed before reaching the mainland. They and the horses they had burdened with much of the stolen wealth sunk to the bottom of Lake Texcoco. Cortés called this defeat La Noche Triste, or the Sad Night, due to the heavy losses they incurred. In the Mexicah tradition, this event is known as La Noche de la Victoria, the Night of Victory. During the confusion of the fight, Tecuichpo Iztaccíhuatl and her half-sister and brother, Doña Marina and Don Pedro, made their way back to their family in the city. They had ended up in the care of Cortés after Moctezuma had entrusted the ladies of the court to him when he was imprisoned and had lost the confidence of his people. They were in the thick of the combat and were among the few courtesan survivors. 2 days after the death of Moctezuma Xocoyotzin, the usual 4-day mourning ritual was cut short. Moctezuma was deemed not worthy of a complete ritual, and the city needed to elect a new tlatoani to provide the return of stability to a shaken city. The Council of Elders chose Kwawhtemok and decided simultaneously to marry him to Tecuichpo Iztaccíhuatl to legitimize his right to the throne. She was 19 years old when she became the wife of the 10th tlatoani. Kwawhtemok was in the process of organizing the defense of the city when he fell ill and died from smallpox. He was only in office for 80 days. Because native peoples had no immunity to the diseases that Europeans introduced, hundreds of millions of indigenous Americans perished within the first 100 years of contact. As for Tecuichpo Iztaccíhuatl, despite being twice widowed in the short span of 2 years, her role in this epic drama was far from over. Kwawhtemok.
Kwawhtemok succeeded his uncle Kwawhtemok and became the 11th tlatoani in 1520. Like his uncle, he married Tecuichpo Iztaccíhuatl to legitimize his position of authority. Even in times of chaos and disarray, the Mexikah made sure to follow the protocols of succession. Kwawhtemok was instructed to reconstruct the city of Tenochtitlan and defend the Anawak Confederacy from a potential Spanish counteroffensive. When the Spanish returned, they chose to besiege the city from all sides and prevented any food and fresh water from being delivered. In addition to this stress and uncertainty, the smallpox epidemic contributed to the unimaginable pain and suffering. Kwawhtemok had considerable military experience, and he succeeded in pushing the Spanish back in a series of land and naval assaults before additional troops swelled the Spanish numbers. After many weeks of urban warfare, Tenochtitlan was in dire need of assistance. Of all the Altepets that once belonged to the Confederacy, only the Tlatelolca remained loyal. Even the Texcoco, the once historical allies of the Tenochca, had withdrawn their support. By the end of the siege, the survivors found refuge in Tlatelolco, where even the women took up arms and bravely fought to save their city. On August 13th, 1521, Kwawhtemok was on his way to call for reinforcements from the countryside when he was captured while crossing Lake Texcoco. He surrendered to Cortés along with all the surviving pipiltin or nobles and offered him his own knife so that he could be killed honorably. But that was not meant to be. Cortés had other plans for Kwawhtemok. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, Cortés treated Kwawhtemok with a semblance of civility, saying,
"A Spaniard knows how to respect valor even in an enemy." Yeah.
However, convinced that Kwawhtemok knew the whereabouts of a supposed hidden treasure, Cortés allowed the royal treasurer Aldrete to have Kwawhtemok tortured. Cortés had gotten it in his head that the Tenochca had hidden a vast treasure, and he wanted Kwawhtemok to reveal its location. Kwawhtemok...
It's in Utah.
Right? Kwawhtemok...
Future episode.
...denied the existence of a hidden treasure and bravely endured the torture. The popular version of the story that Aldrete tortured Kwawhtemok by having his feet put to a fire. The tlatoani of Tlacopan, Tlalpanquetzal, and the Cihuacoat, or Counselor Tlacotzin, were also tortured with fire, but even they refused to divulge information about the imagined treasures the Spanish coveted. According to the oral tradition, it is said that during the torture, that Tlalpanquetzal asked Kwawhtemok to reveal the location of the treasure to stop the pain and torture, to which Kwawhtemok responded,
"Do you think I am in a bath or pleasure?"
This has alternately been quoted as,
"Do you think I am in a bed of roses?"
The exact date of details of this episode are unknown, but in the end, a shamed Cortés stopped the torture. The Mexican people regard this stoicism as the highest example of discipline and spiritual strength and resistance. Cortés was looking for material wealth such as gold and jewels, but in the oral tradition, that's interpreted as Kwawhtemok guarding the cultural and spiritual treasure of the Mexikah people.
Honduras.
In 1525, Cortés took Kwawhtemok on his expedition to Honduras because he feared Kwawhtemok would lead an insurrection in his absence. During this expedition, Cortés ordered him hanged on February 28 along with Tlalpanquetzal. Bernal Díaz del Castillo, in his book, The Discovery and Conquest of Mexico, described the story this way.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Have you picked up your Mexica calendar for the year 12 Flint? Or how about a paperback copy of The Four Disagreements? Just visit talesfromatlantis.com for all the latest merchandise and show some love for your favorite podcast. That's talesfromatlantis.com for all the latest merchandise. Now, back to the show. Convinced by an Indian convert to Christianity that Kwawhtemok was conspiring against him, Cortés had him tried for treason. This charge was controversial even among the Spanish, and Castillo himself believed that Kwawhtemok was innocent. Kwawhtemok's last words to Cortés demonstrate his unconquerable spirit. "I knew what it was to trust to your false promises. I knew that you had destined me to this fate, since I did not fall by my own hand when you entered my city of Tenochtitlan."
We'll be back after a quick break.
Have you picked up your Mexica calendar for the year 12 Flint? Or how about a paperback copy of The Four Disagreements? Just visit talesfromatlantis.com for all the latest merchandise and show some love for your favorite podcast. That's talesfromatlantis.com for all the latest merchandise. Now, back to the show.
And this is where his story ends in relation to the historical record. He has since had a second life as a symbol of resistance and national pride, beginning in the late 19th century. Before the resurgence of Kwawhtemok as a patriotic symbol in the 1870s, he was not really part of the public memory. After his introduction into the national pantheon of heroes, his image and story receive attention and are used to promote the Mexican state for patriotic purposes. Kwawhtemok becomes a stand-in for a unified resistance from Mexico and Latin America against American imperialism. One example of this display of international fraternity, Mexico sent a statue of Kwawhtemok to Brazil, where it still stands today.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
It is interesting. The way that we understand Kwawhtemok in the Mexica tradition can be traced to the controversy over his supposed bones. This starts in the late 1950s in Ixcatiopan, Guerrero, a sleepy town that drew national attention when it was revealed as the location of Kwawhtemok's long-lost tomb. The dissimilar set of bones of men, women, and children that were eventually found ignited a fierce debate that blurred the line between history and politics. People took sides, and critics and believers debated the authenticity of Kwawhtemok's bones despite the clear evidence that the tomb was an elaborate forgery.
Well, plus the fact that all tlatoani were cremated. So there was no reason. Yeah.
Do we know that about Kwawhtemok?
Well, we know that all of the tlatoani were historically cremated.
Cremated.
Yeah. And then we also know that Kwawhtemok was hung from a tree and just left there, right? So he wouldn't have even been cremated.
But the oral tradition states that his body was recovered. Yeah,
that they hung him upside down, they cut off his head, they let all the blood run out, and then they spirited his body away under the darkness of night and traveled in between. I mean, it's a very cool romantic story, right? That they smuggled his body back to his birthplace in Ixcatiopan and buried him there in a place that would eventually become a church.
Well, maybe we can explore that here in a little bit. A prominent resident of Ixcatiopan, Salvador Rodriguez Juarez, claimed to have found papers that reveal the tomb's location. A closer look at these documents showed that they were forged by mixing old documents with newer ones that were made to look old. Nevertheless, the intellectual and material author of Kwawhtemok's tomb was Florentino Juarez, a prominent resident of Ixcatiopan who was looking for a way to connect the town to the growing indigenismo that the federal government promoted in provincial towns. A lot of people don't understand this or don't know this, but at that time, the Mexican government would pay people in towns to play up their indigeneity, even if they no longer had a traditional connection to it. If there was some kind of historical connection to indigeneity that could be sort of played up, the government would come in and they would set up shop and they would create these programs where people got paid it was for tourism, not just international, because we usually think of like international, especially American tourists, but it was also for national tourism, for people in the cities in Mexico to go out into the countryside and get a glimpse of, how the indigenous people used to live and how they live now, and how there's this continuity, right? And this is part of it. This is what this guy Florentino Juarez was basically tapping into. He's like, oh, there's some money to be made.
Yeah, and it was all tied to this nationalism that Mexico
exactly.
Like this formative nationalism over what was going to be the character of Mexico's national identity.
Right. The importance of this event to Mexikah comes through Mexico's first female archaeologist, Eulalia Guzman. She had close ties to the Movimiento Confederado Restaurador de la Cultura de Anawak, or the MCRCA, especially to the historian Ignacio Romero Vargas Iturbide, who is well known for his book Los Gobiernos Socialistas de Anawak. It is no surprise then that the leader of the MCRCA, Rodolfo Nieva Lopez, would announce that the Declaration of Kwawtemok was revealed to him by Estanislao Ramirez, who had connections to the secret council of elders from the town of Tláhuac. Ramirez was a neo-Azteca who had been associated with the early Mexicanistas that predated and influenced the MCRCA people like, our good friend Luna Cárdenas and the Society of Aztec Friends, right?
And Domingo Martínez Paredes.
He was part of that whole crew.
Yeah, Tlacaelel and yeah.
Well, Tlacaelel comes in through the MCRCA.
It's later, but yeah.
The following is a quote from a 2012 article entitled Profecías de la Mexicanidad entre el milenarismo nacionalista y la New Age by Francisco de la Peña. Basically, the title is Mexicanist Prophecies Between Millennialism and la New Age. Or is it millennialism? I think it's millennialism, isn't it? I'm going to read the quote in Spanish first, and then Kurly will say the English translation. Nieva afirma haber recibido esta consigna a través del señor Estanislao Ramírez, un ingeniero nativo del pueblo de Tláhuac y supuesto depositario de la consigna a través de la tradición oral. Pero según otra versión, la consigna secreta había sido guardada por un anciano de nombre Atilano, del pueblo de San Lorenzo, Tlacoyucan, lugar en el que todavía se tiene memoria de él, que le transmitió en náhuatl al señor Clemente Alvarado, octogenario de Santa Ana, Tlacotenco, quien a su vez la comunicó al señor José González Rodríguez, vecino de Santa Cruz, Acalpixcan. So we're getting sort of like a direct line from the oral tradition from one person to the next, and these are supposed to be like the people that predate Nieva, and that's whom he got eventually the consigna or the mandato from, right?
Translation. Nieva claimed to have received the declaration through Mr. Estanislao Ramirez, a native engineer from the town of Tláhuac and supposed custodian of the declaration through the oral tradition. But, according to another version, the secret declaration had been kept by an old man named Atilano from the town of San Lorenzo, Tlacoyucan, a place where he is still remembered, who transmitted it in Nahuatl to Mr. Clemente Alvarado, an octogenarian from Santa Ana, Tlacotenco, who in turn communicated it to Mr. José González Rodríguez, a resident of Santa Cruz, Acalpixcan. And just a shout out to Francisco de la Peña. He has a great book. I believe it's called Children of the Sixth Sun. And it's a excellent resource for anybody interested in studying the history of the MCRCA and the origins of like this nationalist movement and how it was tied to New Ageism. It's only available in Spanish, as far as I know, but it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it.
Absolutely. The consigna was first made public in the publication called Iscalot, which was the MCRCA's newsletter. It was later republished in the book Mexikah by Rodolfo Nieva Lopez's sister Iscalotzin. The authenticity of the consigna has been called into question in recent years by native Nahuatl scholars and speakers who explain that the text reads as if it were originally written in Spanish and then awkwardly translated into Nahuatl. Despite its dubious origins, the message of the consigna is powerful and resonates with many danzantes and mexicas today. As one adherent proclaimed,
"What the grandfather said is that the mandate was preserved for many years in the indigenous communities. That is, it was preserved with the staffs. With the fall of Tenochtitlan, the main staff was divided into 5 staffs and distributed to different communities together with the symbols of command." I'm sorry. What? This sounds so dumb. That's what Tlacaelel told me. And that ultimately, each person who received the staff received the mandate. There are currently many versions, but it is said that the one Nieva Lopez had was the closest and most real. That is the one that Tlacaelel had. And indeed, the elders of Xochimilco gave it to him.
Just keeping it real, huh? This comes from a recent dissertation from 2022 by the scholar Michelle Leisky, Leisky, and the name is in Czech. She's a Czech scholar, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it's basically about the Mexicanidad. And the original in Spanish. So she, Leisky is, over the course of like 10 years, it took her like 10 years to do her dissertation.
Damn.
And if you look at her sources, she did a lot of interviews with people, with danzantes in Mexico City. And some of them date back to like 2013. So we're looking at like 10 years, right? And so this one individual that she quotes, the one that you just read in English, like this is the Spanish. She provides the Spanish quote in the note, in the footnotes, and so this is the Spanish for those of you that want to hear the original quote. Lo que el abuelo decía es que la consigna se conservó durante muchos años en pueblos originales, o sea, se conservó en los bastones. Con la caída de Tenochtitlan, el bastón principal se parte en 5 varas y se reparte a diferentes comunidades, conjunto con los símbolos de mando. Eso es lo que me decía Tlacaelel, y que, a final de cuentas, cada persona que reciba el bastón recibía la consigna. Hay muchas versiones actualmente, pero se dice que la que tenía Nieva López era la versión más cercana y más real. Entonces es la que tenía Tlacaelel. Y efectivamente, los ancianos de Xochimilco se la entregan a Tlacaelel. So, just with this quote, you have some contradiction because that's not what Nieva Lopez said, right?
Yeah.
And we can get into that here in a minute, but just pointing out that there's, even among some of the most adherent and fervent followers of the MCRCA and Nieva and Tlacaelel, like they can't even get their story straight, right? Listeners of this podcast will recall that we explored the pseudo-historic origins of the Declaration of Kwawtemok way back in episode 4 of season 1. So if you're interested in a thorough investigation of the legitimacy of the Declaration, we encourage you to give that episode a listen.
Spoiler alert, it's a bunch of bullshit.
But despite all the nationalistic, pseudo-historical myth-making surrounding Kwawtemok, he remains a powerful symbol of indigenous resistance and is a figure worthy of our respect. And, much respect to Kwawtemok.
Oh, yeah.
Kwawtemok, presente. That's right. That's right. We take no issue with Kwawtemok. In fact, we consider him one of our Mexican heroes, just like any proud Mexican people who have ethnic origins and descent and who follow the tradición or who are just proud of their heritage, know about Kwawtemok. And so us having that connection to Mexikah and to danza, we have that extra layer of that connection to Kwawtemok. So we have no beef, right?
Absolutely
with Kwawtemok.
not. He could be considered a foundational figure in Chicano identity, if you want to think about it that way.
Right.
Just our ideas of indigeneity, of who we are as Native people, and of resistance.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear before, people who haven't listened to the podcast and this is their first time listening and they begin to assume that we're bashing Kwawtemok. We're not. Okay. If you listen closely, we're taking a critical eye, a critical lens to some of the things that have been attributed to him within the last, you can take it back to the last 150 years because really this idea of Kwawtemok as being this national hero that's being, propped up by the government and through the national memory only dates back to the mid, 19th century, especially, begins to pick up in the late 1860s and into the 1870s. Not to say that he wasn't remembered before this as a historical figure. Yeah, sure. but as like someone to be remembered as an icon, right? As a revered figure of Mexican heroism. Like that wasn't really a thing up until the middle of the 19th century.
Mm-hmm. And then also, you know, Kwawhtemok, his history, what we know of it, you know, just what is known of his history is fascinating enough. And it in itself is worthy enough of our attention and of our respect. It doesn't need to be embellished, or we don't need all these bullshit stories made up about him and all this, you know, romanticization and myth making about who he was. What he did was enough to warrant our respect, in my opinion. You know,
well, you know, if I can offer a caveat to that, like I'm okay with people making stories about Kwawhtemok and La Caída de Tenochtitlan and all that stuff, as long as they are honest with themselves and the public that this is a you know, it's a fictionalized story based on historical events.
Yes.
Right. Make it clear that that's what you're doing, and I have no issue with it. Fine.
Yeah, don't try to pass it off as something.
You know, I'm all about the arts.
Happened.
You know, I just read. You know, I was in a play. You know, reading a script, right? So I get it. I understand it. I'm just saying, as a historian, when you try to pass things off as history that have no actual merit and no sources behind it besides what you heard someone say, and you're making arguments from authority to convey a message and try to justify it, then that's when I have an issue with it. I'm going to ask you, what are your sources? Provide some sources for me.
Exactly. Proof, please. So if you're a new listener to the podcast, I encourage you to go back to the first season and, you know, kind of catch up on who this organization is, because we're dropping a lot of names like Rudolfo Nieva Lopez and Juan Luna Cárdenas and Domingo Martinez Paredes, etc. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about who these individuals are, I highly encourage you to go back to the first season and sort of just catch up, get a little background information on who these individuals were and how they played into this pseudo-historical reinterpretation of Mexican history as it relates to this, you know, Mexican nationalism and this reframing of Mexican identity couched in, you know, the role of the Aztec warrior and just really focusing on the Mexikah, right? Because this is what came out of that era. And these individuals that we've mentioned had a large part in duplicating, replicating, and spreading this information to people. And a lot of this is information that, you know, people in the danza community and, you know, quote unquote cultural practitioners follow to this day is based on this, unfortunately, misinformation that was crafted by these individuals.
Absolutely. And as we go through this new season 3, we'll provide a little bit more context where needed or necessary on some of these figures. And in fact, we might even later on in the season maybe rehash some of the old episodes and provide a little bit of new information. So
absolutely,
in case you haven't made it through the previous seasons and the previous episodes and you haven't caught up to that point and you're just wanting to sort of listen in to the latest episodes, then we'll try to provide even, you know, some of the old stuff that we've already covered and kind of just present it in a new light if necessary, just to get people up to speed. Because what we're doing here it's almost like taking a course in a sense, right? Because, you know, imagine yourself taking a history class, for instance, or what have you, and you start, it's a 16-week course. And, you know, you can't just like sign up in the middle of it, right? Because you've already missed half the semester. And that's kind of what's going on here. Like, if you really want to get a sense of what's going on with a lot of the things that we say, I mean, we do have standalone episodes that you don't have to have all this background knowledge on, but a lot of like, for instance, this episode, like you do need to sort of go back and and familiarize yourself at least to a very basic degree on some of these things that we're talking about. The Movimiento Confederado, Rodolfo Nieva Lopez, and his role in propagating the consigna or the mandate or the Nahuatl Amat. I mean, it goes by different names, right? Like the declaration, what have you. And for those of you that don't know, do you want to kind of recite it real quick, the first couple of verses, so that people can understand what you're talking about, what we're talking about, the consigna? Do you have it there with you off the top of your head? There was a time when Kurly could just recite it on command.
There was, but with old age.
I would say, Kurly, la consigna, and then he would just like...
I would just step up.
Step up.
Just start speaking.
And you would do it in the slam poetry style, your favorite.
I would. That is my favorite. I don't know if you know that, but I'm a big fan of slam poetry, especially Chicano slam poetry. It's the best.
The best.
But, like organizations like the MCRCA, I'm still, and I shouldn't be, but I still get taken off guard, a little surprised when I meet danzantes who have never heard of the MCRCA, have never heard of Rodolfo Nieva Lopez, who have never heard of Juan Luna Cardenas. And I'm like, well, all of these things you're like, not all, but a lot of these things that you're repeating come from these guys. How do you not know about them? And it makes me wonder, like, do their danza captains even know who these guys are?
They probably don't even know themselves.
Yeah. It's a little unsettling. It's disappointing, I think is a better word.
And you know what makes it even more disappointing? This is coming from a set of people who often privilege the oral tradition, right? More so than the written word. And it's like, well, if you privilege the oral tradition, then someone should have orally have told you where some of this stuff that you're following comes from. But I think what happens a lot of the times, and we've touched on this before, is that some of this information gets filtered through the Mexikah lens. Mm-hmm. And so instead of Rodolfo Nieva Lopez being the person who first presents the consigna, it becomes like, the Council of Elders,
it's always
that.
A secret council somewhere.
The secret council. No, but even before I knew of the secret council, like the way that I understood the consigna having been made public was that just somewhere in some community, right, in a remote part of Mexico that had, kept the tradition, and they had been given this like the quote says, right? And they kind of go through this litany of names of who said it to whom, and that's great. But I would never hear any names, like none of these Atilano, like all this was like new to me when I finally decided to like dig into it. But in the tradición, no one ever told me any of this.
No,
always
in a very superficial way,
elder, right? Some unnamed elder somewhere from back in the day told it to the person that we are learning from now, and they had learned it from someone. And that was as far back as it went. It would just go back to the immediate elder that you are under at that moment. And they learned it from somewhere.
And that it had been passed mouth to ear, mouth to ear, mouth to ear over hundreds of years.
500 years.
But somehow had managed to remain exactly intact, right? Like perfectly intact and nothing missing. Let me redeem myself, by the way. Our day now is hidden. Our day has disappeared. And in a completely dark place, it has left us. We do not know that it comes once more, that it will come out this way once more and newly eliminate us. There it is in the land of the dead. It will extend. And just quickly we will reunite. We will become near to one another. It's pretty long. I don't want to go through the whole thing.
That's a different one. I don't know that version.
Yeah, it's actually, this is the direct translation that Magnus did for me.
Right, that sounds like the one that Magnus did. It doesn't sound like the one that's...
the original one is like...
We will rise.
Yeah, it's like our sun has hidden, our sun has gone away and descended into darkness. It has left us, but we know it will return once more, right? Is like,
and the message is great, right? I mean, we've talked about this before, right? When we did that episode, it's a great message. It's one of resistance.
It's inspiring.
It's one of the Chicanos, you know, during the Chicano movement, when they picked up danza and the tradicion, it resonated because Chicanos were an oppressed people here in the United States, and we still continue to be to a degree, not as much as we were before. You can make the argument that we still are, but I mean, I would say that we've made some progress over the years.
A little bit.
But, like it did resonate with the raza, with the Chicanada here, because it was a message of reclaiming your identity, reclaiming your traditions, reclaiming also your land, right? Back when the idea of Aztlan, the Chicano homeland, was still kind of fresh and new and in people's minds, and a goal to kind of work towards in the Chicano movement.
Yeah, and it even appears in the, I believe I gave you a copy of it, that the newspaper La Cucaracha from the barrio
yes,
that I'm
you
from,
did.
Dogpatch.
Yeah, right.
The consigna is in there.
It is.
And it's connected to a story written about Tlacaelel. So
isn't he in there? I think.
Yeah, there's a photo of him in there. They did an interview
There's a photo
with
of him in that. Right.
So it's very interesting. Although I have a question about how you feel about this, because you in this episode we say that Eulalia Guzman was the first female Mexican archaeologist, but can it be said that Celia Nuttall was the first female Mexican archaeologist, even though she was of European descent? Or would it be fair to say Eulalia Guzman was the first ethnic Mexican female archaeologist?
Okay, so Celia Nuttall was...
Maybe I'm being pedantic.
Was she born in Mexico?
Yeah, I believe she was.
And she was raised in Mexico too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when people, because I'm not the one that's saying, I mean, this is what is commonly like people, when they refer to her, that's how they refer. I'm just following what others have said about her.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen it before. I've seen it before.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, you could make the case that Celia Nuttall is the first quote unquote Mexican if you're looking at it from a national sense in terms of like your national identity. Yeah, she was the first female Mexican anthropologist. But if you're looking at it from an ethnic sense, then yeah, it would be Eulalia. She would be the first ethnic Mexican anthropologist.
And I've always wondered, and I think it's, I don't know, one way or another, but I suspect that she probably went to her grave thinking that she had actually discovered the bones of Kwawhtemok.
That would be interesting to find out.
Well, interestingly enough, and I've always been hesitant to talk about this on the podcast. Like I talk to people about it in private because I think it's cool, doing the research of my family and going back through records, marriage records and stuff. But Leonor Valderrama de Moctezuma is my 13th great-grandmother. So I think that's pretty... I don't know. I just think it's neat.
It is neat. It is neat. So you might be related to Kwawhtemok.
Yeah, I mean, somehow, right? Like he was an uncle or something, like a great uncle way back in the day. But so that's my 13th great grandmother. And I don't know. I just think it's pretty cool. I told somebody that, and they were like, "That's badass, bro. So do you get primer palabra now in the danza?" Like,
yo, do you remember back in the MES days, the Mexikah Society days, in the forum? Do you remember this one time there was some fool from, if I'm not mistaken, they were either from Spain or they were from Mexico but claimed Spanish ancestry or something. And they were saying that they were a direct descendant of, I want to say Moctezuma. And they were trying to say that they had the right to claim the throne of Mexico or something. Do you remember that? It was some weird argument they were trying to make. I'm like, what? Like, you're stupid, man.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, and if you go back, Moctezuma probably has a lot of descendants.
Absolutely.
Right now, right?
I mean, the dude had over 100, concubines or whatever the word for it was.
So a lot of us can trace our ancestry back to Moctezuma. But
it's kind of like the Great Khan,
friend,
right? I mean, a lot of people can trace their ancestry to Genghis Khan.
Yeah. But our friend, our good friend and friend of the podcast, Luis Herrán, when I told him this, he was like, "Tu pinche abuelito."
That fool.
Well, man, it's good to be back.
It is. It's been too long, and I don't know. Do you want to say this now, or should we want to wait about just to remind people when the seasons start?
Oh yeah, because we get a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails asking when the new season, the new episodes are going to drop, and the way that we plan it is that each season begins with the observed spring equinox, which marks the binding of the Mexikah year, or the bundling of the year, and the birth of the new year. Right. So that's when we try to time out each season to start with. So all of our concerned fans out there, worry not. We are back, and we ain't going nowhere.
Nowheres.
And remember, the truth, well, it's like medicine, my brother. And you know what I say about the truth.
What's that, homeboy?
It doesn't always taste good, but it's always good for you.
Good bones, too.
Timoitas.
Ja.
Thank you for listening to Tales from Atlantis, a project of the Chimali Institute of Mesoamerican Arts. If you enjoy the show, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do this by visiting talesfromatlantis.com and clicking Support the Podcast. Your continued support will help keep the podcast ad-free and independent. Until next time, Timoitase. Thank you for listening to Tales from Atlantis, a project of the Chimali Institute of Mesoamerican Arts. If you enjoy the show, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do this by visiting talesfromatlantis.com and clicking Support the Podcast. Your continued support will help keep the podcast ad-free and independent. Until next time, Timoitase.